From the author of Spinsterella, the strange and unusual romance and spellbound, a darker shade of black comes the legendary Mad Matilda. Pick up the conclusions of the Spinsterella trilogy in paperback and e-readers this Halloween. Hollywood is reeling from the worst summer box office that it's had in over 20 years. Most films that came out this summer underperformed or performed very poorly. And you have Hollywood executives now talking about they want to blame RottenTomatoes.com for the failure of many of their movies this year. I can't blame RottenTomatoes.com for the failure of most of these movies or this year's poor box office, because when I look at the box office for this year, I compare it to 1990. Now, back in 1990, you had several movies that executives thought were going to be incredibly successful. One was RoboCop 2, another one was Dick Tracy, and another one was Total Recall. They thought all three of these movies were going to be blockbusters that year. Unfortunately, all three of those movies struggled at the box office. And one of the reasons why those movies struggled was due to the poor stories in all of those films and what a lot of people called back then action movie fatigue, because a lot of people were just tired of the same old action movies, and they were also tired of all the sequels, because I remember in 1990 they launched a lot of sequels, and a lot of sequels failed that year. And the big movie that was the biggest hit that year was Ghost. Now, Ghost was a change of pace from all the shoot 'em up, kill 'em up action movies that year in 1990. That movie, along with Pretty Woman, were huge blockbusters that year because a lot of people were just tired of seeing shoot 'em up, kill 'em up action movies that featured the same story over and over again. This is what's going on here in 2017, because here in 2017, I look at the audiences these days, and it seems like they are also tired of all the superhero movies. They're tired of all the computer-generated cartoon movies, and they're tired of all the remakes and rehashes of old, tired franchises like your Alien and many other franchises, which seem like they continuously get rehashed almost every 4 or 5 years. What most people want from Hollywood are original concepts. They want new and different stories. They want new and fresh ideas. I've always said that this is the perfect time for a studio to launch a new comedy, because a lot of people are struggling these days and they're looking for a laugh. And no one has really come out with a really fun comedy in a long time. No one has come out with a fun romance at this time. When it comes down to the studios these days, they keep playing it safe instead of taking the big risks. And because they play it safe, by making so many action movies, people really don't have an incentive to go out here and spend money at the theater, because all the time it's the same movies over and over again, and there's nothing special or unique or something that merely wants to make you grab you and go see it. Because I look at it, and this is what people are looking for. They're looking for something different. They're looking for something unique. They're looking for something that says to them, this is worth me going out and spending an afternoon to go to the movie theater or a night to go to the movie theater. Another superhero movie isn't something special anymore. I mean, back in 2008, a movie like Iron Man was special because it was the first movie to feature a Marvel superhero. But these days, we have 3 or 4 movies featuring Marvel superheroes coming out every year. Not to mention all of these Netflix television shows that come out every year, and TV shows like Supergirl, The Flash, Arrow, Legends of Tomorrow, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I can practically see superheroes everywhere, and it feels like it's very overwhelming. And I'm a comic fan, and I feel overwhelmed by all of these superheroes on screen, and nothing that's, regular slice of life. We don't get to see any slices of life anymore at the movies. We don't get to see any romantic comedies. We don't get to see any comedies, and we don't get to see any human dramas anymore. And as I see it right now, the studio that starts launching those types of films, that's the one that's going to really energize the audience and get the audience to come back to the theaters, because what the audience is looking for now is they're looking for something, again, unique, original, different. They're tired of watching the same stories over and over, because as a guy who has watched a lot of superhero movies, I'm starting to see how they're starting to become repetitive all the time, boring all the time, same stories over and over again. And this is why people aren't going to the movies, because they're tired of these big budget blockbusters, and they are looking for something that's completely different. It reminds me a lot of what happened in 1990, and it also reminds me a lot of what happened in the late 60s when the Vietnam War was going on. Now, back in when the Vietnam War was going on, we had movie studios out here going out producing all of these huge, big budget musicals and all of these epic movies, like these epic war movies like Tora, and all these other movies. And people were just tired of seeing those type of movies, especially when you have guys coming home from Vietnam and were suffering. What they wanted to see was something different. And when guys like Tom Laughlin came out with Born Losers, people were ready to go see that, because one, it was a biker movie, two, it was making a commentary about the war, and three, it was just a great movie, because when that movie came out and introduced Billy Jack, it brought people to the theater. And other films followed in pursuit, like The Godfather and Serpico and many others, and that led to a huge surge at the theaters, because the films were talking to people and making commentary about what's going on. What I'm seeing right now is a similar disconnect at these Hollywood studios. You have a lot of guys who are fanboy executives. They're living their dream, bringing a lot of these superheroes to life, and a lot of people are feeling like the stories that relate to their lives are not being told on screen. And because they feel like their stories are not being told, they're staying home instead of going out to the theater. Because that's what I see right now, is that people don't see their stories being told on screen. They don't see their lives being told on screen. They don't see their experiences being told on screen. And they want to see stories with characters they can relate to, stories they can identify with, and stories featuring people who are just like them. And this is one of the big problems with Hollywood these days, is that they don't produce films that have people that are just like us. These are superhuman people. These are super people. And that's nice for an escape for a small group of people, but the rest of the world wants stories too, and we don't have that diversity anymore, because many Hollywood executives are so afraid of risk that they just want to play it safe with these superhero movies, in the same way that those producers back in the 60s wanted to play it safe with those musicals and those epic movies. And those musicals and those epic movies almost bankrupted Hollywood almost 40 years ago. And I see a similar pattern happening with these superhero movies. The irony of it all is that films like Star Wars, Jaws, and many of the horror movies that came out in the 70s were the thing that saved the movie business in America. But as I see it right now, the great irony again is that these movies are choking the life out of America's entertainment business. And it's clearly time to do something different, do something unique, and do something that's completely off the page, or the Hollywood movie machine is going to see the same type of trouble that it saw back in the late 60s and early 70s. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct titles, like All About Marilyn or All About Nikki or many of the other books in the SJS Direct catalog, you can click the link to Amazon.com in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.